The snow came down that morning like sifted bone dust, dry and directionless, veiling the pines in silence. Eli Boone found her just before dawn, crumpled beneath a cedar, one moccasin missing and blood blooming on the white like spilled wine. She did not beg, did not cry, just looked at him with eyes like dark flint, sharp, watching, unsurrendered. He didn't ask her name. Eli wasn't a man who needed many words. He wrapped her in his buffalo coat and carried her back to the cabin, boots crunching through frost that cracked like glass beneath his weight. Her body was light, starved, perhaps, and though she trembled, she never broke eye contact. Inside, the fire whispered low, its warmth a fragile promise. He laid her on the cot and left the room, as if privacy might restore something dignity had already been robbed of. For 2 days, she said nothing. Eli made broth, left it near the hearth. She drank it. He brought boiled hides to keep her warm. She didn't thank him. On the 3rd day, she rose ghost-like and stepped outside. Her bare feet sunk in snow, but she didn't flinch. She stood still, staring into the forest like it might still be hunting her. By the 5th day, the town knew. It started with the Simmons boys spotting her at the creek, kneeling to wash blood from her hair. One red braid slid down her back, wet and stubborn. The boy ran home screaming, "Injun girl, up at Boone's place." And that was all it took. By dusk, Mrs. Callagriggs had rallied 3 other matrons around a teapot at the inn. A savage? In a white man's cabin? Alone, she hissed, voice honey slick with outrage. Eli Boone may be a widower, but decency ain't buried with his wife. The sheriff came next. Jed Murdoch, dust-worn and tired-eyed, rode up to the cabin under a gray noon sky, where crows circled like a curse. Eli stepped out before he could knock. "She ain't dangerous," Eli said. Jed chewed the inside of his cheek, then spit. "Doesn't matter, Eli. Not to the town. Calla's rallying the churchwomen. Says if she's not gone by Sunday, they'll come." Eli looked past him. Inside, the girl sat by the fire, back straight, watching them through the glass. Her eyes never blinked. "What if she marries me?" he asked. Jed blinked. "Is that a proposal or a tactic?" "Don't matter," Eli said. It happened quiet. No church. No witnesses but Jed and the trees. Wana'na stood still beside Eli, wrapped in her same deerskin cloak. She said nothing when Jed read the words. Didn't flinch when the 10 rings slid over her finger. Just looked at Eli, as if reading some unspoken story written in his worn hands. Afterward, Jed cleared his throat and mounted his horse. "Won't stop him talking," he warned. "But maybe it stops the torches." Eli nodded. The door creaked, closed behind him. That night, the cabin seemed smaller. The fire burned too warm, too loud. Eli sat at the table, carving a piece of pine into a horse that didn't look like anything yet. Wana'na sat across from him, unmoving. She reached for the bowl of beans he'd left between them. The movement was small, almost invisible, but it was the first thing she'd chosen since arriving. Eli didn't smile, but something inside him settled. He watched her eat slowly, deliberately. Her fingers were calloused. A scar curled under her jaw, nearly hidden but not to him. He didn't ask what had happened. Some wounds speak in silence louder than questions ever could. Elsewhere, that same wind carried a different kind of trouble into Dustwater. The eastbound stagecoach creaked into town, and from it descended a woman in traveling gray with a steel spine and lips pressed thin. Maybelle Whitlow, mail-order bride, arrived with a letter in her coat and a gun in her boot. She had been promised a man of means, Boone Weller, rancher of 30 cattle and a mansion-sized ego. Boone came to meet her, wearing a hat 2 sizes too wide and a grin 2 teeth too few. He tipped it as if offering gold. "So you're May," he slurred. "You're even better than the picture." May looked him up and down, saw grease on his collar and liquor in his eyes. Then, loud enough for every ear at the post, she said, "This arrangement is terminated. I'd sooner marry a mule." The air turned thin. Boone's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Not out loud. Just watched her storm off toward the inn while townsfolk tittered behind lace gloves. That night, Boone drank until his breath turned black. "She humiliated me," he snarled to no one. Laughed in my face. His hand trembled as he poured. That cabin boy gets a savage, and folks call him mercy. I get denied, and I'm a joke? He staggered to his feet. Maybe they all need reminding what real men take. Back at the cabin, the fire had dimmed. Wana'na sat by the window, hair unbraided, watching the dark trees sway. Eli poured water into the basin, cleaned his tools without speaking. He could feel her gaze, not heavy but present, like mist on skin. Then, for the first time, her voice reached him, low, unsure, and carved from deeper sorrow than language could hold. Why didn't you leave me? Eli paused, cloth in hand, looked at her. Because no one should be left in the cold. She nodded once, slow. Many are. The quiet after her words wasn't empty. It breathed. She rose, walked to the fire, and sat beside him. Not touching, not asking, but nearer than before. The flames threw long shadows on the walls, and outside, the wind shifted east. Down in Dustwater, Boone Weller bought bullets. And the snow, still falling, didn't know which story it would bury first. The storm passed, but its aftertaste lingered in the air, acrid, electric, as if the world had been struck and hadn't quite healed. In the pale dawn, Wana'na stood at the cabin's threshold, wrapped in her silence like a second skin. Eli noticed the way she tilted her head toward the forest, as though listening for something he couldn't hear. Her hand brushed the doorway as she stepped outside, not hesitant, but remembering. He watched her from the table, nursing coffee that had gone cold. For weeks now, they had lived in a rhythm built on quiet. She cooked without instruction. He chopped wood before she asked. They passed tools without speaking, like old dancers who had forgotten the music but remembered the steps. The town had not forgotten her. They had only grown used to pretending she was no longer scandal. Church ladies crossed the street. Children stared. At the general store, Wana'na was offered goods with the tips of fingers, as though even her shadow might stain. But she bore it all with a stillness that bruised Eli more than outrage would have. Far across the valley, Maybelle Whitlow packed her valise at the inn with stiff hands and unspoken shame. Since refusing Boone Weller in the middle of Dustwater's Main Street, she had eaten her meals in silence and left her room only when necessary. The townsfolk, ever ravenous for penance, called her spoiled behind closed doors, uppity in the open. Her pride, once armor, had begun to rust under their laughter. Then Eliza arrived. She stepped off the stage looking like spring after frost, soft-spoken, sunflower hair tucked in a ribbon. She carried May's old locket and a letter clutched like scripture. "I came because you stopped writing," Eliza said, voice fragile but unbroken. "I thought maybe you needed me." May stared at her sister for a long time, then touched the locket. "It wasn't meant for you to see me like this. You told me once," Eliza whispered. "We survive by bending, not breaking." Boone Weller spotted them from his saloon steps and grinned the kind of grin that cut. He approached with a limp swagger and liquor-slick breath. Well, one runs, another takes her place." He tipped his hat to Eliza, who flinched but did not look away. "I'm not her," Eliza said. "Not yet." Boone smirked. "But get a week. Maybe you'll learn to keep a man warm without sass." May stepped between them. "You won't lay a finger on her." Boone leaned close, a whisper of threat in his smile. "Then maybe I'll find another girl who don't talk back. One already half-trained." The threat hung there like smoke. And then he tipped his hat again and walked away. That night, Eliza sat on the edge of May's bed, staring at the cracked mirror on the wall. "I could do it," she said softly. "Marry him. Give you your name back." May shook her head. "It would break you." Eliza smiled, tired, tender. "Not if I walk into it knowing who I am." Back in the pines, Wana'na planted seeds in the frost-soft earth with her fingers. She did not ask if they'd grow. She simply planted. Eli brought her a clay pot he'd carved himself. She took it without looking up, but a corner of her mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but the idea of one. That evening, as light folded over the hills, Wana'na sang for the first time. It was a low, broken hum, like something remembered too late. Eli didn't speak. He simply listened, as if the sound itself had weight. She stopped mid-note. "My father sang that when he buried our dogs." Eli set his knife down. "I'm sorry." He said dogs guide us when we're too lost to know we're dying. She didn't look at him. Do you think people can do that too? He answered slow. I think some try. In town, Boone loaded his rifle with jerky hands, whiskey making his breath thick. She humiliated me, he muttered, as though the bottle might understand. Twice. One of his ranch hands, lank and long-nosed, shifted nervously. You sure this is wise, Boone? Folks already talking. I don't give a damn what folks say, Boone snapped. I'm owed. I ain't letting no red girl and no high-bred brat walk around like queens while I ride alone. He rode out under a full moon, 2 men behind him, the kind who didn't ask questions when they smelled rage and coin. Eli heard the horses before he saw them. 3 silhouettes broke from the tree lean, torches casting snarling shadows across the snow. Wana'na was already at the door, rifle slung across her back. They come for you or me? She asked, eyes steady. Doesn't matter, Eli replied. The door opened before Boone could dismount. Evening, Boone, Eli called, voice low. You think you're clever, doing your savior act? Boone snarled. I'm here to settle things proper. Then settle them, said a voice behind him. It was Eliza, breathless, cheeks red from cold and courage. She had followed them. I'm not afraid of you. Boone turned. Go home, girl. No, she said. You wanted a wife, and you got one. But I won't stand behind a man who uses fear for love. Boone stepped forward. Wana'na raised a rifle. Not aimed to kill, but aimed to be seen. I bled under white hands, she said calmly. I will not bleed again for their pride. Behind them, a single whistle cut through the trees. Sheriff Murdoch rode in slow, rifle across his saddle. Lay down your guns, he ordered. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Boone spat in the snow, rage steaming. This ain't over. No, Sheriff said. It's just over for you. The men dismounted, tossed their weapons down. Murdoch bound Boone's hands himself. Wana'na lowered her rifle. Eliza exhaled. Later, as dawn painted the snow gold, Eli poured 2 cups of coffee. Wana'na joined him on the porch, wrapped in a blanket stitched with scars and time. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. After a long silence, she placed her hand over his. Inside, a sprout had broken through the pot's dry soil. And down in dust water, someone nailed a fresh sign on the church fence. Wedding postponed. Let grace decide the rest.